grew up in Dublin City, school, college, and I've spent my life working in Dublin. I've lived all over different parts of Dublin, and to see a bus burning on O'Connell Bridge was absolutely heartbreaking. To see the scale of violence and people terrorised in their shops was completely heartbreaking. I've also worked in youth justice since 2006, and I know that the Guards Youth Diversion Programme has worked for 95% really of the young people who come into it. It's incredibly effective, but for that 5%, I feel I saw them that night, that 5% that the state interventions didn't and can't reach. But they are compounded by the far right, and the far right has been growing, and it is there. And I know this because I saw it in Ballybrack this summer in July, where I had a month worth of violence and public order protests and disruption. And I spoke to Minister MacNeill about it, and I want to compliment the response of the Gardaí, who did everything they could to take the heat out of it. They did everything they could to manage it in a way that was as safe as possible for the community, and eventually needed to have a more forceful response. I want to compliment Fergal Harrington and in particular Gary Deehan, the Community Garda, for their excellent response at that time. But it was also a time for political unity. Cormac Devlin, my colleague, Richard Boyd Barrett, Oisin Smith, and all of the councillors, the Cathaoirleach Dennis O'Callaghan, who we came together and we tried to manage this the best way we could for the period, that time, but also for the period ahead, to try to manage this in the best way in the interest of everybody in the community, but also so as not to allow the far right a veto on who moves into Ballybrack. But do you know who wasn't there? Do you know who wasn't there and didn't help me? The Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin representatives locally. You're active on the ground, you had councillors in Killiney Shankill, and the only people who didn't help me, and didn't help Cormac Devlin, and didn't help Oisin Smith, and didn't help Richard Boyd Barrett, and didn't help the Gardaí were Sinn Féin. And you had the opportunity to with the Community Gardaí. You didn't. You're playing both sides of every argument, and I needed your help, and Cormac needed your help, and we all needed that help, and you were the only people who did nothing to help the community. You are playing both sides of every argument, and I'm not saying this politically, I'm saying this because we lived through it in Ballybrack in July. We lived through it in Ballybrack in July, and we needed your help. You were on the ground, you have a strong local presence, and you did nothing to help, and I will never forget it.